All right, this is the AP Pre-Calc Function Characteristics Part 2. So if you didn't watch the first part, it kind of lays out more of the foundational stuff, talking about increasing and decreasing functions and when the function is positive or negative. And so in this second part, we focus on the concavity and relate it to the rate of change. And then we kind of put it all together, but there will be a continuation for this second part of the video because this topic is pretty more involved and we can't really stuff it all into this one video. So what we'll do is hit the highlights of the notes, and then in the continuation, we'll do more of the hands-on practicing. So for this one, we really want to talk about the idea of concavity. So this should be generally the first time this topic is introduced to a student. Of course, it gets more involved when you get into calculus, but for this level, we're still kind of just talking about how graphs have different curvatures. And so I've seen a lot of my students share that their teachers are saying things like this, which is pretty cute. So I threw it in here. Concave up. We can think of concave up like a cup, and you can see that the cup is curving up. And then concave down has a cute little rhyme, down like a frown. And so this one would curve down, right? You can see it right here in the frowny face. So we've got also concave down here, but they're really focusing on concave down like a frown and concave up like a cup. So you can remember those things. So here the graph is going to curve up. If we say it's concave up, the graph is going to curve down if it is concave down. And so this is an example on an actual function over here. So this part here would be considered from here to be concave down. And the same graph is drawn over here, and you can see from here to here, it's going to be concave up. And then somewhere it's going to change, right? It's going to change from concave up, in this case, to concave down. So wherever we call that changing concavity. So wherever it changes concavity, that is going to be called a point of inflection or an inflection point. So it could change either from up to down or down to up. As long as it's changing concavity, we're going to call that a point of inflection. So this is just getting down some of the basic vocabulary. Okay, so now we want to relate the concavity of the graph to the rate of change of the graph. And so the rate of change, we know that's going to be the same thing as the slope, describes how one variable is changing in relation to another variable. Also, kind of the wording of the AP is describes how the outputs, which is Y, change with respect to the inputs, which is X. So we want to learn these two things here. So first of all, if the graph is concave up, that's going to tell us that the rate of change is increasing. Okay, so concave up means the rate of change is increasing. Concave down, the rate of change is decreasing. So the concavity of the graph, whether it's concave up or down, is going to tell us the behavior of the rate of change. We can also say that it's at an increasing rate or a decreasing rate. And so this is where it starts to get really confusing because you have to read carefully. So I put this little note in here, always read very carefully. Make sure that if you read the question, you're trying to see, is it saying that f is increasing? Because that means the function's increasing. That's what we talked about in the first video. All right. Or if you have the statement, the rate of change of f is increasing. So that means something different. So make sure you read that carefully. Are we talking about the function, or are we talking about the rate of change of the function? And so I broke this down into four categories, four little pictures down here, so you can kind of start to see what could all be happening on the graph. And so the two on the left are concave up, right? Up like a cup. Okay, like just like we said above. And the two on the right, concave down, so down like a frown, down like a frown. So what's happening? So you can be concave up, but you can be concave up in two ways here. F could be increasing or decreasing. So we know that F is increasing because this would have a positive slope, so to speak, even though we don't actually talk about the slope of curves yet at this course. So, but you can see that it's rising from left to right. And that's how we kind of have talked about it so far, right? And over here, it's falling from left to right. So F would be decreasing. But if we do consider the slope, right? If we look at one point, maybe we can look at the slope at this particular point. The slope here, if you travel along, right? If you know this look at the slope of all those little lines, you can see the slope would actually be getting larger in value. Okay, so if it's getting larger in value, the slope is increasing, or we say the rate of change is increasing. And so that's going to happen in both of the cases where it's concave up. So even here where the slope is negative, as you're getting closer here, a negative value is getting closer to zero. So it actually is getting larger in value. So the rate of change is increasing. So you can still have the rate of change increasing when the function is decreasing. And so we can kind of say the flip over here. You've got concave down. If you were to look at the slope, this one is going to actually be getting smaller in value because you can see it's steeper right here, right? And then it kind of flattens out. So the slope would be getting smaller in value. So the rate of change would be decreasing, even though the function itself is increasing. And then here it starts out pretty flat, right? But it's starting to get steeper, but it's steeper, but the slope would be negative. So the number actually in value would be getting smaller. So the rate of change is still decreasing. So you've got the rate of change decreasing and the function is decreasing. So we've got a lot going on here. So we will talk about how to apply this in the next video. Okay, so we'll call that the next video here is going to be the function characteristics part 2, but it'll be continued. So I'll see you in the next video.